I love to squeeze. Hi, my name's John Squeezo. I'm president of Squeeze Corp, and I need to tell you how much I love squeezing.
Welcome to ScapeChatz, episode 23. I'm Alan, and I'm here with Magellan for the Season 2 recap. Magellan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Alan?
I'm fantastic. We're recording a little bit earlier. I don't want to call it early like I did that one time where we recorded at like noon. But we're here, and we're recording, and we're here to talk about a lot of things. Because we finished Season 2 of Farscape. And we have lined up a discussion of the plot of the season, basically a recap for those who are watching for the first time or who want to start this podcast or TV show at Season 2. I don't know why you would do that, but hey. And also, we're going to go down the list like we did with Season 1, and we're going to talk our favorite episodes from Season 2, our least favorites. We got decent ones in there, and we got dark horses. So, first off, I think we should start.
At you like a dark horse.
Yes, thank you. Katy Perry is actually joining us as a guest for this episode.
Hey,
she'll be occasionally appearing to
Katy
sing in the background.
Perry.
Hi, Katy. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you guys, too.
On this audio show. Magellan, do you want to start by reading your version of the plot of Season 2 of Farscape?
Yeah, this is my version of the opening monologue over the credits.
Go for it.
Okay. Yo, what's up? The name's Johnny C, and have I got some shit to tell you? Okay, so get this. I was in my rocket ship flying around and shit, and then this fucking wormhole opened up, and I was like, damn, this is some tight fucking shit. God, I love science. I've got a science boner. Woo! Yeah, so anyway, I met this alien broad, and she's pretty hot. And then there's this other blue alien broad, and this big, handsome alien guy with a tentacle face, and sometimes he makes me feel space.
That's actually the whole show.
Yeah.
But I think that captures most of what was going on in Season 2, kind of to a T, actually. Like, that's really... You clearly did a lot of research, and that incorporates like most of what we talked about, I would say, like thematically. They're building on a lot of stuff from last season. Thank you.
I also liked it. It's
thank
Katy
you, Katy.
Perry.
Also.
I think she's
Katy.
leaving. Up and doors slam. Yeah, she's gone.
Bye, Katy. Thank you for joining us. Oh, she's already gone. She's in her car. She's driving away very fast. She got a red Corvette. That's hot. Anyways, realistically, this is the sort of like paragraph and a half that we composed just to sort of summarize the season for everyone. I'll take this one over.
Please.
Let's put some fun music behind it. The neurochip has now begun taking over Crichton's mind. He is hallucinating Scorpius. Dargo and Chiana grow closer and fuck like rabbits. Aaron and John still have a complicated relationship, made more complex by the fact that John doesn't truly feel like himself. We meet Scarens for the first time when Crichton is enlisted to marry an alien princess because of his successful DNA kissing test. We also learn much more about Chiana this season, with info on her rebellious stone-taking years, as well as her relationship to her rebellious cool brother, Neri. Stark is back and has a weird relationship with Zahn. He tells the gang that Jothi is for sale, so they try to rob a bank and earn the money to buy him. Talon is a bad boy in the meantime, but that gets taken care of. Before Crichton is completely ruined by the chip in his head, the crew rescues him. Turns out Scorpius put the thing in there to get wormhole info out. When the robbery fails, Crichton gives himself to Scorpius, who has bought Jothi in exchange for the boy. The rest of the gang leads a complex operation to rescue him, featuring all sorts of fun alien races from previous episodes. This plan mostly works out, but then they needed to fix Crichton and get the chip out of his head. They went to a diagnosing alien for help. Everything seems to be fine, but whoops! Scorpius is fully in control of Crichton, so he tracks them, has a possessed Crichton kill Aaron's son by making her fall into frozen water in a crashed prowler, and then comes to the planet himself to kill the doctor and leave Crichton sad, alone, unable to speak, and still partly controlled by the neural chip.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. What a season. What a season.
What a seasoning.
What a seasoning. We talked a lot in the Season 1 recap about this whole theme of communication, and just right off the top, like we talked about this last week, and I'm going to bring it up a lot, but the concept of Crichton being taken over mentally makes me think that, like, the show creators clearly, they want, you know, Crichton's whole thing is that he uses his head and he communicates with people, and he does that to succeed and bring alien races together. And they take away those two things from him, which is a very, when you write television, it's a very sort of like easy technique to make your main character likable and give them a good arc, is to give them something they're good at and then take it away from them and watch them earn it back.
Sure.
But I think it works here because Scorpius is such a cool villain, and him being in Crichton's head constantly reminds us that like he's around even if he's not physically present, even when the show doesn't have to show it, because he's like inside of there, and that's really terrifying. And there's a lot of really terrifying villains in this season that we'll get into, but like Scorpius and Crichton's relationship kind of steals the show this season.
Oh, for sure.
What did you think overall of season 2? Did you like it? Did you like it more than season 1? Why?
I thought it was really great. You want to know why?
I would love to know why.
I think I agree with a lot of what you were saying, just about how the show to this point has been really great at building a strong dynamic between its protagonist and its principal antagonist, as well as nurturing the John-Aaron relationship, the John-Dargo relationship, just a few great sort of character pairings that are always fun to watch and to spend some time with. That said, there's still some like sloppiness, and there's still plenty of episodes that, weren't great.
Right.
And they weren't great in a way that was annoying. Because at this point, you kind of know that the show can be better or do better. Yeah, but it's definitely, better than season 1. I think just because, like, that's kind of an unfair comparison because they've built a lot of momentum and they have the sort of overarching plot of the show going on now. But definitely a lot of really, really great episodes in here, for sure.
Yeah, it's very clear where the whole thing is trying to go now. We're trying to tell these broader stories, and we got the introduction of 3-part episodes, or like formal 3-part episodes this season, both with the Look at the Princess trilogy and the Liars, Guns, and Money trilogy. And I think that represents a turning towards more broader story arcs, where we get lots more characters and more development from everyone. And we talk about the Whedon test a lot, which is this idea that you can pair up at least two characters and have them interact meaningfully. And the showrunners have gotten so much better at that this season, and the writing team has expanded. So I think that this is the season that we're going to look back at and think this is when Farscape was figuring out what it wanted to say overall, and what it wanted to be, and what it wanted to carve out in the realm of sci-fi television. Because season 1 is very experimental and very much like we're figuring out what we're doing, both production-wise and writing-wise, and the characters are kind of figuring out their relationships to each other.
Right, they're trying different things out.
Exactly. So that's why I'm really excited about season 3 being the part where it is just stone cold awesome and consistently has its own voice. I've heard less great things about season 4. Not that it's bad, but that it is not as consistently flawless as supposedly season 3 is. But we'll get into that when we start doing predictions. I would actually like to start by going down the list of season 2 episodes, and we're going to categorize all of them based on 5 categories, which again are essential episodes, highlights, decent episodes, lowlights, and dark horse episodes.
Okay, so what we mean by these categories. An essential episode, we have 4 of those that Alan and I together have agreed you just have to watch them, either because they're amazing. Well, really, it's because they're amazing in the sense that they move characters forward and they move plot forward. They just have a lot of great set pieces. They're well crafted. All across the board, they're amazing episodes.
Right.
Highlights are episodes that are really good, and we'll explain what reasons we like them for. They vary, and we have 2 of those apiece. Decents are, they're pretty good. We would personally advocate that they're worth watching, but they're not essential in the sense where, like, you could probably skip over them if you're a crazy person who only wants to watch 4 episodes of a show per seasons. I don't know.
Someone out there that wants that.
Lowlights are ones that we don't like. We don't like those. And then dark horses are episodes that we understand might not be universally as liked as the other ones that we've picked, but we have some reason that we want to fight for why they're worthwhile.
Right. Would you like to start and just go down the line and talk essential episodes first?
Yeah, let's do that.
How about each of us takes 2 of these? How does that sound?
That sounds great. So the first essential episode we have is season 2 episode, I believe it's episode 5. Yes.
You were right.
The Way We Weren't, which is the episode where we see a lot of pilot backstory.
Right.
And we develop the Aaron pilot relationship, because we also see Aaron backstory of time when she was a peacekeeper. And her
we learn about
her love
we learn about her
yeah.
relationship with her other co-captains, and we learn about Grace early on and how he met Aaron for the first time, and some beautiful work from Lonnie Tupu, both as Grace and as Pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Just an incredibly well acted episode, and some very, very important backstory for both the Peacekeepers overall and Aaron, and I guess also Pilot.
Yeah, and the visual
consider
conceit.
this episode essential. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, the visual conceit also. I like I think we disagreed a little bit on how cool exactly the sort of gray look to the past scenes was, but I thought it was really awesome.
The bleach bypass.
Bleach bypass. That's right.
So why do you consider this episode to be essential viewing, other than what we've already mentioned?
I think this is core to Aaron's arc as a character. Like you just can't really understand Aaron's son if you don't watch this episode.
Yeah.
And to me, at the end of the day, Aaron's son is the best character on this show, both in terms of she's the best performed character, but also she's the most engaging and interesting character to me in terms of development and complexity.
I have flipped back and forth on whether or not I think also that Aaron's son is the best on the show, but I would not argue otherwise that she is, or that Claudia Black is the best actress, or just like best actor in general, because she brings a realness to the character and a honesty and a vulnerability to a character that could have very easily been this trope of the tough woman. Right. And she brings that pathos to it. And this is, like you said, an essential episode for understanding such an important character to the show. A really great one. And it was I believe it was the last Naren Shankar written episode. And it's another Tony Tills directed one. So like it is that's why the directing and the visual stuff is very striking, because he tends to do the weird choices when it comes to that. Should I take the next one?
Yeah, go for it.
The next episode that we're going to discuss is Season 2, Episode 19, Liars, Guns, and Money, A Not-So-Simple Plan, which is part 2 of the 3-part Liars, Guns, and Money trilogy.
That's
is that
right.
accurate?
No, it's part 1.
Oh, and then part 2 is, yes. Yeah, you're right. Liars, Guns, and Money, part 2 is with Friends Like These. Part 1, I chose, we chose as an essential episode, because it sets up one of the best trilogies of the entire show. It is... The Liars, Guns, and Money is basically we're going to get the gang together and we're going to rescue Jothi, and we're going to steal a bunch of money from the Shadow Depository, which is still an amazing name for a space. And we get the return of Stark. We get the sort of introduction of what's going to become the rest of this trilogy. And you cannot have the back end of the season without the Liars, Guns, and Money trilogy. Mm-hmm. And A Not-So-Simple Plan in particular, we also really wanted to highlight as an essential one, because it features probably, I think to this day, our favorite scene of the show so far.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, which is, people know it. It's the final scene of this episode, or it's one of the final scenes, where John Crichton and Scorpius are in a hallway in the Shadow Depository, and they are just two men on the edge of their rope, and they throw their weapons away, and they are just hand-to-hand combating on the floor. And they're fighting, and they're yelling at each other, and they both carry... We talked about this a lot in the episode, but they both carry the thing that the other person needs. Uh-huh. Scorpius has the ability to remove John's neural clone, and John has Scorpius's cooling rod, which ties back into his half Scaran, half Peacekeeper. Is that correct?
Yeah. Half Scaran, half Sebation.
Yes, half Scaran, half Sebation nature. And it's such a beautiful scene, because we talk about how it incorporates so much of the show, and incorporates
the way you said that they're going hand to hand on the floor, to me made it sound like they're old style boxers, doing the hand wave thing in front of their face. But yeah, they're on the ground just in agony, crawling and barely able to do anything except yell at each other. And there's this power struggle where Scorpius is like, "Come to me, John. You need to come over here. You have no choice." And John is just screaming. And it's such an incredibly powerful scene, and it's essential to the show because it conveys how this show wants to do its big moments. Because some shows want to do their big moments where it's like, pew, pew, oh my God, oh, that, you know what I mean?
Right.
But this show, it's like, no, our big moments are the hero, the villain, they're on the ground, and they're just talking and they're just having trouble.
It is such an incredible, because this show uses its limited. I wouldn't say it's like limited budget, but it's kind of like it doesn't go overboard with things like CG or with like large scale effects, which is also a big reason why they don't do a lot of away team episodes. Is because they kind of manage to use the Moya set and the limited other interior sets to their advantage. And this scene in particular is just emblematic of that whole way of thinking that the Farscape writers have.
Yeah.
Really an incredible beginning to an incredible trilogy, and just overall, like, this is what season 2 of Farscape was for me, was incorporating all of these big things together and bringing them together and making something incredible out of it.
Yeah. Our next essential episode is Won't Get Fooled Again. It's season 2, episode 15, and This is the one where John's on Earth. He's on Earth.
It's the Earth episode of this season. Yay!
He made it back to Earth. Yay!
But wait a minute.
It's so great here. Everyone's cool. This doctor looks like Aaron's son.
Aaron? Dr. Bettina Fairchild. You look mysteriously suspicious. Other than your hair.
Looks like Zan. This race car driver looks like Darko.
In a nice sweater?
This person at the bar looks like Chiana.
Pilots playing drums and keyboard at a bar?
This isn't Earth at all!
Oh, no! We love the fun Farscape episodes, and this is probably the most singularly fun episode of season 2.
It's a very funny and delightful episode. I think we've talked in the past about the joy I take in seeing characters or actors in a show play something different than what they normally do. So characters playing characters or actors playing alternate versions of their characters, things like that. And Farscape finds different ways to do that from time to time that are really entertaining. And there's other examples from this season even that we'll talk about. But yeah, this episode is just so fun from beginning to end, and when we talked about it, we didn't have a ton to say because it's just nice to watch. There's not really a lot to pick apart necessarily.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward episode, at least.
Yeah. The one plot thing that also makes it essential is this is the episode where you learn about the neural clone in John's mind. So you learn that I was going to call him Scorpio, but that's not his name. Is it Scorpius? Why am I forgetting his name right now?
It's a weird name.
It's Scorpius, right?
Yes, it is.
Oh my god, I feel like I'm going crazy. We learn that Scorpius has implanted a neural chip in John's brain, and he has a little clone of himself inside there, who we had seen before in Crackers Don't Matter, but it's like, nah, we're acting crazy. So we didn't think that was a real thing. So that's an important plot detail that you don't want to skip out on. But the episode in general is very, very fun.
We also see a Scarron in this episode, and the only other full 100% Scarron that we had seen previously was the one from the Look at the Princess trilogy. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting, and watching them do their torture thing and realizing that that's like a cultural aspect of Scarrons is their obsession with torture. And yeah, we also mentioned that this is a bad episode to show someone Farscape for the first time because it relies on you knowing the characters and then having the fun of watching them be inverted and be weird. Like to see Zahn and Chiana and Aaron be like weirdly sexual with John in that first person table at the end. And then like Rigel's wearing like bondage. All of that stuff is extra funny if you have watched the show. And seeing obviously Dargo in the sweater in the convertible is like one of my favorite visuals.
Yeah, it's so good.
But it is, it's an incredible episode if you're already invested.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, and you know, and the fact that it goes back to Earth too, and like Kent McCord as John's dad again is one of those things that you kind of have watched season 1 and been like, oh yeah, Crichton's dad, to have that sort of moment be important and memorable.
So if you go back to our season 1 recap and watch everything that we thought was essential there, then you're probably in an okay spot to watch Won't Get Fooled Again, I would imagine. Especially since one of our essentials was a human reaction, which this episode is kind of like playing with and playing off of a little bit.
Right. The difference obviously is that a human reaction is not a funny episode. It is It was a very sad episode, but they're both doing like that's why I said like this is the Earth episode of season 2, but it is not trying to make a huge point about Earth. It's more making a point about John's psyche and where he is at this point in the show internally.
Yeah. That's really cool that Earth can be used as a device to elicit different emotional states, that John's relationship with Earth is itself quite complex. It's more than just the sort of carrot on the stick. There's a longing to it. There's a sincere love of Earth. There's a belief deep down that he's never going to get back there. There's a sorrow to it. There's just so many dimensions to his relationship to where he is and who he is within that context that Farscape can mine and find drama and comedy and these moments of ridiculous levity and moments of just heart-wrenching groundedness. Such a wide range of emotional evocation in this show, and it wows me all the time.
I couldn't have said it any better. I think the last thing I want to say about this episode is that, in my opinion, it's a more confident episode in itself than A Human Reaction was because, and bear with me on this, A Human Reaction is the kind of episode that you watch and you can show someone who doesn't get Farscape and they're like, wow, this is really profound and smart and clever. Won't Get Fooled Again is the type of Farscape. It's actually more emblematic of what Farscape is becoming because it's confident in its ability to do comedy while also eliciting drama. Like you could, because like A Human Reaction isn't, like I said earlier, it's not funny. And that in a way is because the writers weren't as confident, like doing the whole blending funny with serious that the show gets incredibly proficient at by its second season. And I think that's a good reason that it's on our essential list, is that you can see like, hey, yeah, by season 2 they were able to do episodes that were really intense and weird and dramatic while also being hysterical. Yeah,
there's a real striking darkness to Won't Get Fooled Again, because there is that desperation and that sort of hopeless nihilism inherent in the idea of like, oh, I'm not on Earth, I know how this is, you won't fool me again. So that's going on. And then the end of the episode is this chilling moment where the Scorpius neural clone basically makes John forget that it exists.
Right.
It saves his life, and then it's like, I'm going to disappear now. You aren't going to remember me. And so you leave this really fun episode thinking, oh, fuck, our protagonist has a little villain guy in his brain. This is bad. What's he going to, like, I can't, as an audience member, foresee a solution to this situation. And yeah, it's just, like you were saying, it's just fantastically bold to play with both sides of that, to play the sort of horrific and the ridiculous, funny in kind of a creepy, haunting way. So yeah, very cool episode.
The last essential episode that we have on our list is the season 2 finale, which is called Daimi Dichotomy. And you can't not watch this episode.
Yeah.
This is one of the best episodes of Farscape. You mentioned to me in the previous episode of ScapeChatz, before we did the Daimi Dichotomy episode, that no one should read about this episode before they watch it, because it is very much, it hinges on the surprise of John being entirely possessed by Scorpius for the majority of it, and Scorpius using John's relationship with his friends and the crew to manipulate them and hurt them and take over. And then, it obviously segues into, like, you thought that Scorpius had most of the control. Now he has all of it. Now he is John. And you see the infamous John Scorpius costume in this episode, where John is looking like Scorpius and the makeup is incredible. And the lines are so blurred between the two of them that it is horrifying. Like, this episode very much functions as a horror episode, because it's the whole, like, the villain that's been inside my head is now taking us out from the inside. And that's a lot of the episode. And another thing that I really love about Daimi Dichotomy is that it's the first time, at least that I've seen, where the show is very deliberately continuing from another arc, because it's pulling from the very end of the part 3 of the Liars, Guns, and Money trilogy, in that Moya has burned her insides. And so the whole, like, impetus for them being on the medical planet and meeting up with the Diagnosin is that they need Moya to get fixed. But also John's like, hey, maybe I can also get this chip out of my brain. And Scorpius uses his friends against him. And Joffy's on the ship at this point, so we get some Joffy, who's not great, but he's important to the grand scheme of things, I think.
Sure.
And we also get some good Talon and Krace moments when they come in to help Moya and kind of give her some life fluid while she's being cured, or before she gets cured, rather. And yeah, it's just another, like, hey, if in case you weren't sure if Scorpius is truly terrifying, he's barely in this episode. Like, he himself,
very true.
I think he only comes in towards the end, if that, and he takes, oh yeah, he does. He comes in at the end because he does the last thing of the episode. But like, he's incredible through John's neural chip shenanigans, and also like the character of Grunchilk with the Diagnosin. Like, that's an interesting relationship. It's a dense episode. I watched it again recently. Yep. Hey, the Diagnosin is here. What's up, buddy?
What?
Remember? One of the like funny, sad moments of the show when they're going down the list of memories. The diagnosis is trying to pull the neural chip out, but has to move out and delete and edit out other memories in John's head. And is saying, remember, like, your dogs from your childhood? And John's like, I would prefer if you could keep that, but maybe don't. And all of this stuff. And the history of all the aliens. It's a heavy, heavy episode.
Yeah.
And the loss of Aaron's son throws a wrench into where it seemed like Farscape was going in a profound way.
It's just so it's dope because you finish Liars, Guns, and Money and you think, okay, I guess they got away. I guess it's cool.
Yay!
But it's not cool because everything bad just happened. Every bad thing. They put us in a spot where it looks like the season is wrapped up. And then they unwrap it all.
And not all of the all of the character development stuff that happens in this episode is great. We don't talk about it a lot, but Joffrey and his problematic relationship with Gianna, it comes to a head in this episode.
Oh, I don't think this is the head. I think this is the tip.
Oh, right. It's going to get way worse.
I would imagine.
Yeah. He holds her hand at Aaron's funeral, which was the moment for me where I was like, no, I don't think the creators are doing this as a joke or to be like subversive. They're doing this because they are going to put these two characters in a
I think
situation.
I get the sense that they went into this episode thinking, how can we get ourselves in the most trouble?
Yeah. Look, how can we just fuck everything up?
Yeah. And then we'll fix it in a couple months.
That's a pretty bold way to do your show.
Yeah.
It's like things are bad right now, but kind of on a subdermal level. Let's just bring it all out. Bring out all the big guns.
Right.
Let's fuck everything up. Everyone's sad. One of our best character is dead. John has her hair.
And the whole device of like John is turning into this weird Hannibal Lecter creature is ludicrous and bombastic. And if you take a step back from it, kind of silly.
Right.
But it's so close and feels so small. Like you feel very, as an audience member, in proximity to what's going on. I don't know. I just got the sense watching this episode that I was like in the room with what was happening.
Yeah.
And it was haunting and disturbing. Yeah. Which is
particularly because we follow John Scorpius through this whole thing and we don't just like, he's the Rock. And for us to be following the villain through an episode, like their perspective through the whole episode is really terrifying because you're just like, I can't even watch everyone else try to struggle to get away. The only like moment where it seems like they've triumphed over him is when Dargo and Joffrey do like the double tongue lashing. And even that's like a silly, dumb moment. Mm-hmm. That doesn't even go that well for them. And the last thing I want to say about this episode is that it has probably my favorite last line of an episode ever.
Oh, yeah?
Which is the last line of season 2. Scorpius says, I condemn you, John Crichton, to live, so that your thirst for unfulfilled revenge will consume you. Goodbye. And he shuts off the Windows XP computer. Or the AIM client. And just, goodbye. It's fucked.
Oh, it's real fucked. What are we going to do with that shit?
I don't even know. I'm so scared and excited. But that is our last essential episode of season 2 of Farscape.
Yay.
Let's move right along. That was probably the majority of our like long discussions. I think the rest of these can kind of be like a little bit tighter.
For sure.
So for highlights, which is what we're going to do next.
Highlights. So my baby, I'm back in town.
Thank you. The first highlight that I brought is I really need to find the episode titles. I'm just going to cut myself back in again. What the fuck is A Clockwork Nabari? What episode is that?
It's the one where
I know what it is, but which episode number is it?
Oh, yep. I don't know. Scroll up in the list.
Found it?
Yeah, 18.
Okay. The first highlight that I wanted to bring up was A Clockwork Nabari, which is season 2, episode 18. This is a great episode, in my opinion, because it incorporates Chiana's past in a very tight on-ship episode and features one of my favorite villains of the show so far, Varla, who's an incredible Nabari and very scary. And we learn a lot about Neri, and we learn a lot about Chiana and how her character up to this point was very, very much like defined by her sexuality and her sexual nature in relationship to other people. And we learn through the backstory that is in part because she is rebelling against the STD virus that the Nabari put in young people on their planet. And so that kind of like reframes everything that we've thought about. The establishment is the governing body actually on Nabari Prime. And she is kind of pushing that aspect of her character intentionally because she feels like she was so like cloistered as a result of this stuff on the planet that she's like, no, now I get to live and do the thing that I want to do and like be a sexual being. And I love that about Chiana in this episode. Like we learned that about her, and it is such a simple way of sort of like adding dimension to her character just by just saying one thing about her past, and it reframes so much.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this episode in the context of Rhapsody in Blue. The idea that if the show is a BioWare RPG, this episode is Chiana's character quest that you have to do.
It's her character side quest.
Yeah, you have to do to get her to like you more or something. And Rhapsody in Blue, kind of same thing. And I don't know, I just had a lot of fun with this episode. I thought it was very efficient in terms of how it used details that we already knew about Chiana to build a new and interesting story that fleshed her out even more. So it used the idea of her brother and his death, which we'd seen in Taking the Stone, and that had initiated that episode, which has its merits. And then from there, you thought, oh, maybe the brother's done, but then in this episode, no, we can actually draw on that even more, and kind of create the Nabari in a way that elaborates on Chiana and what she's all about. So I appreciated the episode in that sense. And I had a similar feeling about Rhapsody in Blue when we saw that. All that was a little weirder, fittingly.
Yeah. It's a little rougher of an episode also.
Yeah.
I think that is most of what I wanted us to bring up for this one. I think also just highlight is the scene where John and Pilot are using a fake out Peacekeeper attack to get Varla to allow them to warp. It's a great moment. I was a little bit confused by it when I watched it, because I am bad at picking up on plot subtlety, but it's like it's pretty clever the way that they kind of like do the double fake.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't even work, which is great. It's a very Farscape thing. It's like we have this whole elaborate plan, and then like, oops.
And you're gonna see the cool plan, and you're gonna be like, wow, that's a great plan. And then no, it didn't.
Whoopsie.
Didn't do it.
Would you like to take the next highlight?
Oh, you bet I would. Mine is going to be Look at the Princess - A Kiss is But a Kiss, which is the first episode of the Look at the Princess trilogy, season 2, episode 11. To be perfectly honest, I don't remember a lot about the Look at the Princess trilogy. I think I kind of explained that in our episode on it, which is I like drifted off into a pleasant sleep and had to rewatch a lot of it. And just in general, it has this weird, misty, ephemeral air to it, where it's as if you're tuning into something, to some odd, obscure film that nobody else has ever seen. Here it is, and you're going to watch it, and you can't really ever talk to anybody about it, because if you try to bring it up, they'll be like, what? I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of that. And that's kind of how my brain watched it, and so my brain didn't log anything, really. But the first episode I remember being particularly fun because it sets up this world, and I wanted to kind of pay lip service to the Look at the Princess trilogy, but in my opinion, the second and the third chapters kind of meander a lot. And there's great stuff in the third part, at the end of the third part. The second part is kind of moving all over the place. But the first part set up this really cool world. You set up the stakes for the relationships. You have a lot of fun scene work in the bar with the kissing liquid potion, whatever it is. And yeah, I just remember watching this episode and finding it really cool. So I think the merit of this is, if you want to get a sense for like Farscape on the planet episodes, like a sense for that at its best, I think A Kiss is But a Kiss is an example of that. It's a planet episode that is well wrought and really detailed, and it just has a cool feel to it and a cool vibe.
Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. This is definitely the easiest episode of the trilogy to recommend because parts 2 and 3 get kind of dense and weird. There was like, even when we were discussing them, there was so much stuff in there that we just like forgot and didn't even think about. But part 1 has that great scene where Crichton is shown what his child with the princess would look like. So that's like a really good moment if we're talking like highlight of the highlight. But I don't have anything else to say that you didn't say. It is a good episode of a okay trilogy.
What's your next highlight?
My next highlight is season 2, episode 9's Out of Their Minds, which is another very funny episode, another very performative episode, where the crew have their bodies switched in a very classic sci-fi premise, and they get to play each other for the whole episode. This episode is it's like one of the funniest episodes of Farscape. It has some great moments.
Yeah, it's very fun.
And the fact that everyone just gets to play each other, even though they aren't all humanoid. Like a lot of times when you see a body switching episode, it's just a bunch of people, and so they're just kind of doing each other's voices and mannerisms. But like the fact that Chiana or Gigi Edgley is doing pilot at one point, and like has to remember how to breathe. Like those little clever moments where you're like, oh, this is also a show with aliens that we just see as characters.
Right. And there's that challenge of like, you have to do an impression of a puppet.
Yeah. Where they're doing pilot, or where one of them is Rigel, and you're just like, I don't even know how do you do Rigel, because he doesn't really walk, and he has to learn how to walk. There really is not a ton to say about Out of Their Minds. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite moment. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. What's the favorite moment?
Everyone's favorite moment from this episode is the thumbs up and the okay sign that Aaron in John's body gives. It's like the thumbnail of the episode where we talked about this. It's so charming and perfect. And there's a lot of good John and Aaron back and forth in this one. Yeah.
I think the reason that this is a highlight and not any higher is because whereas with Won't Get Fooled Again, if you have a sketch of the characters in your mind, you can enjoy it because it's really just kind of flipping or playing on the trope of their character, you know? Mm-hmm. So like Dargo is tough guy, but now he's going to be silly race car guy. And that's funny. Whereas in Out of Their Minds, you kind of have to have a good sense of these characters' tics and nuances to really appreciate what they're doing. That, and this episode doesn't really forward any plot necessarily.
Yeah, it could be a lot better. But speaking of a lot better, the last highlight that we have from season 2, I'll let you take this one.
Sure. I didn't mean to say that it was bad. Also,
no. I agree with you. I'm just saying that there wasn't this sort of similar to Won't Get Fooled Again. This is an episode that's great, but there isn't like a lot of meat to chew on thematically. It's just like, oh, watch everyone be fun with each other, and like it's totally great to watch, and I'd love to rewatch it, but like I can't write a paper about this episode, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. My second highlight in the last of our 4 is Liars, Guns, and Money - Plan B. Ooh. This is the last part of the Liars, Guns, and Money trilogy. This is the episode where they perform the heist. Well, no, the heist isn't the first one. This is the one where they perform the rescue operation. The John rescue. A lot of fun action in this episode. Cool interplay. I'm saying cool a lot. A lot of the stuff is actually cool, but let me explore my adjectives. Electric interplay between John and Natira as she's kind of negotiating what's my role in this, and she's trying to play everybody, but everybody's playing her. So the politics, the personal politics that are going on here are engaging and really the best drama of the episode, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The action's great, and then these like nothing side characters, this like dumb big frog man gets a heart-wrenching heroic sacrifice. Yep. I love that. I love that so much. That this guy that we brought on an episode ago has a full arc, and you really care about him, and you're sad to see him go. So just, it's a great example of when Farscape does action, it does it in a way that isn't, again, it's not a barn burner, but it is fluid, and it has a drive to it that's really fun to watch. But overall, no matter what, they still have that premium placed on character. Character is king, no matter what we're doing.
Best thing about this episode is just that it gives, those characters that you thought were useless. And it reminds you like, hey, no, these people have arcs that we wrote for them, and we want to put them in this episode and have them do their heroic sacrifice. And my highlight of this episode was just the scene where Scorpius is in John's head, and so is Harvey, and they're in like John's childhood, one of the like childhood vacation homes, where I don't remember the name of the setting, but it's a great place, and it just kind of like conveys a lot about John, and then the fact that both Scorpiuses own the hell out of John in that scene and just knock him out in his own head is like kind of profound and like really good. I've been saying profound a lot. That's my adjective of the day. It's kind of brilliant.
Yeah, there you go.
Moving on. Our next category, and the last one before we go to break, is the decent episodes.
Which are
The Desos. The Desos are okay. They're all right. They're not amazing.
Yeah, we can just blaze through these.
Yeah, we both have 3 of these. I gotta do the fucking episode names. Why didn't I write these down?
Are you not looking at the doc?
But does the doc not have... No, it doesn't have the episode numbers. It has the names. That's
well,
what
you can scroll back up to where the list is.
Oh, shit. What's my first one? Ugly Truth? Okay. Control F Ugly.
That's like me reading my Yelp reviews.
Yay! Oh, wow. Can I keep that? Oh, shit. Oh, my God. My first decent episode is Season 2, Episode 17, The Ugly Truth, which I don't even remember what happened in this episode. Oh, no, this was the Rashomon episode.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. This is actually a really disappointing episode to me, personally, because I think that this show could have played way more with an interesting Rashomon episode. But the consensus that the two of us came to in the podcast, and also like the community that has responded since we did that one, is like it's one scene that's happening 5 times. Because this is the episode where like Talon is shooting a weapons dealer, and there's all this like nonsense with that. The only thing that I liked, and the reason that this is a decent episode, is that John gets played with in some fun ways in this episode. And the reason it doesn't work, other than the John stuff, is that it's one scene and it's not that interesting. And it doesn't seem like the characters should have a reason to lie to each other and lie about each other, because they could really just like all get out scot-free if they didn't lie to each other. But John works in this episode because the idea is like in everyone else's story, John is their side character. And for him to like, he's like usually the protagonist, and then he gets to like play side role. And this is really fun. And it reminds us that this show doesn't want to stick to the hard, like this character is the main character. They like to mix it up a lot.
Yeah, this episode's well acted, and within its premise, it does some fun and inventive things, but the base premise itself, like the inciting, this is why we're here, just feels arbitrary and flimsy.
Right.
And then the whole Stark's death, which doesn't actually matter, means that this episode amounts to 0.
It is nice to see Talon and Crace back in an episode, but it's like they're actually way more interesting in in Liars, Guns, and Money than they are in this.
Yeah.
So, c'est la vie. What's your first decent episode, John?
Oh, my first decent episode is Crackers Don't Matter. That's Season 2, Episode 4.
Yes.
This is a pretty well-known episode of Farscape, and it shows up on a lot of people's lists of best episodes ever. It is very fun.
Yes.
It's funny, it's crazy, it's zany. It has the amazing first appearance of Harvey imploring John to shoot her so that they can have pizza and margarita shooters, that's great. Nobody has margaritas with pizza, as John says. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this episode that's fun to watch, but whereas I think other episodes that are fun, if we're putting this in the same category as Won't Get Fooled Again and Out of Their Minds, Won't Get Fooled Again is able to accomplish big plot moves as well as exploring the concept of Earth and what are we trying to return to, what does John have at stake, all of these core questions to the show. Out of Their Minds is not approaching anything core, but it's really affectionate towards its characters, and it has a lot of fun with having the actors tease each other in a way that's delightful. Crackers Don't Matter is like, it kind of sells out its characters a little bit in a way that I don't necessarily love. So it's hard for me to say that it's one of the best ever, but it is most certainly very fun to watch. And I think one should watch it eventually. But I will say, if I was making like, here's the 10 episodes you need to watch to get into Farscape, no way would I put Crackers Don't Matter on there, because it's crazy. It's like, it's not the show. That's like saying, if you, I can't even think of an example. It's so bad. I get to think about it for a second, but
this is an episode where John dons an aluminum foil superhero costume and then bounces a light to fight a bad guy. Like, that's interesting and weird and funny, but like, what the fuck, Farscape? The fact that this episode is on a lot of people's best ofs is like, it just makes me think that people value different things about the show than we do.
It's like saying that the one Wes Anderson movie you have to watch is the Darjeeling Limited.
Right.
I'm just kidding. That's a good one.
I was going to say Fantastic Mr. Fox, but that's more like, that's a great one, but it's also not, it doesn't look like a Wes Anderson movie because it's animated. Just like, oh, that's weird. The animated one is your favorite?
That's like saying the one Shakespeare play that you really have to read is The Tempest.
Wait, but
maybe.
The Tempest is really good.
Oh, shit.
I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
I just know it's weird. What's a weird one that's bad?
The Taming of the
Titus
Shrew.
Andronicus.
No, you got it. You nailed it. Taming of the Shrew is fine. Anyways,
We
we
read books.
don't. The last thing I wanted to say about Crackers Don't Matter is that it still will always be the one in my mind where they fucked up the John and Chiana relationship with one of the most problematic scenes of the whole show.
Yeah.
And it's not only like, oh, they messed up that episode because they did that again later in the season with the whole, like, he's proving that he's real by grabbing her.
Yeah.
They don't write John and Chiana well.
No.
And I think they think about them differently than the viewers do. And that's all we're going to say about that.
Yeah.
I hope it gets better, their relationship.
But yeah,
hey,
Crackers
that's
Don't Matter.
The next one that I have is Season 2, Episode 16, The Locket. Really not a ton to say about this episode. The reason I have it as decent is because it is decent. It's okay. It's the episode where John and Aaron's son get really old on a planet, and they kind of like walk around and live their life, and then they get rescued, and then they get de-aged. That's kind of the whole episode. There isn't a very good B plot, which tends to. That's the other reason I don't like this as a very much, is because it's a decent A plot with no B plot, or at least not a memorable one. But I do enjoy it because older John and Aaron are both very charming, and even though John leans super hard into his southern accent, that's like still funny, and it reminds me of my favorite sci-fi show, which is Futurama, and it very much feels like multiple episodes of Futurama where Leela and Fry kind of like live lives together and then get to rewind time and experience those things again.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't. It's just, again, not an episode I'd need to rewatch. I would just watch like the scenes where they walk around together, because there was actually a piece of trivia that someone mentioned, and I think I brought it up in a Moyabag, where like the scenes where they walk around and talk was just Claudia Black and Ben Browder shooting the shit for like 30 minutes in a forest, and then they just like filmed all of that and kept the parts that were interesting.
That's fun.
So this is an episode that highlights how good their relationship as actors is, because holy crap, that's like the best thing about the show.
Yeah.
And, if you ever get into the like external ephemera of this show, like the interviews and the comics and stuff, that everyone else like super duper gets that and writes for that relationship. They're so cute together. Someone just sent me out a link to them at a convention where they're just like brother and sister, and it's adorable. Like holy crap. I hope they're still friends. Do you have anything else to say? But do you have anything to say about The Locket?
Not particularly. I think you summed it up pretty well.
Excellent.
My next decent is Look at the Princess - The Maltese Crichton, which is the third part of the Look at the Princess trilogy. Basically, we don't need to talk about it too much more. If you liked the first episode of Look at the Princess, keep watching it. If you
might as well finish it.
Yeah, you might as well. If you were okay on it, then I don't know. It's fine. I will say, even though this episode is decent, there is a scene in it which I consider essential, which is the final scene with the vat of acid.
Yep.
Where John is essentially threatening Scorpius and holding him over a vat of acid, kind of exerting his power. And then John decides to not kill Scorpius and leaves. And immediately after he leaves, Scorpius straightens up, fixes himself, and then playfully runs his hand through the acid.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. Which just that's it. That's this dynamic. He is in complete control.
I adore it, that moment. That's like one of the best moments in an okay trilogy, and like, super cool. And then the last decent that I have is the episode before that. Look at the Princess. I think, which is part 2 of the trilogy. There isn't much more to say about this one. I like it because of the scene where John is about to be frozen in the Farscape's carbonite, and Dargo's like, bad news, you're going to be frozen in carbonite for 1,000,000 years. Good news, Chiana and I are having great sex. Having fantastic sex. There it is.
Yeah.
That line is like their relationship kind of summed up, at least in this point of the show. There's a lot of nonsense in I think, though. It's not a particularly fun or super memorable episode. It's just so much. Like Genevieve the Assassin is one of those things where they're like, John needs to have all of the girls crush on him. And then Aaron goes on a rock climbing trip with that dude who sucks. And the guy like basically dies, but not really. It's all over the place. I don't have much to say about it.
Yeah, me neither. My last decent is Liars, Guns, and Money - With Friends Like These, which is the second part of the Liars, Guns, and Money trilogy, season 2, episode 20. With Friends Like These is, to put it, it's skippable. It's a very fun in the way that it's set up, insofar as they're bringing back a lot of side aliens from past episodes that you didn't think would ever come back. So it's nice as a viewer to know that their world is constant and that they're willing to draw on what they've created so far, that it's not the kind of sci-fi show where they just make a villain of the week or a planet of the week episode and then leave it in the dust and never think about it again. That said, it is a very, means to an end. It's like A on the way to B kind of episode. It's really planny and talky, and it's about getting the team together. It's a cool team, and it's nice to see them build that team, but ultimately it's an episode that's trying to get us from one place to another, and you could quite honestly cut it out of this trilogy and just watch the first part and the third part.
Yeah, it's a middle chapter. It's we are getting the gang together, but they don't do anything in this episode. Like, it super drags. Yeah. Compared to the other two, at least. But it's important for the setting up all of those characters, like how they're going to have arcs in part 3. But I'm always a big proponent of minimalist storytelling, and this one just feels like they had a lot of script and they wanted to just squish it all in there. Mm-hmm. That is our 6 decent episodes from season 2 of Farscape. I think we should cut to a quick break so we can do some Moyabagging, and then we'll be back for our lowlights, dark horses, and season 3 plot predictions.
Yay. Whoosh.
Hey and hello, ScapeChatz listeners. This is Alan for the Moyabag for episode 23 of ScapeChatz. It's the feedback section, and let's get right into it. First up, some tweets, some tweets. We got another memo from who says that Crace is going to continue to be weird and rapey towards Aaron, and if it's not him, it's Stark. Which, this show doesn't deal well with Aaron's relationship to other men that aren't John Crichton. That's what I'm going to say. Season 3, according to them, is where things get darker, edgier, and more violent, which isn't always a good thing, but isn't always a bad thing. The soldiers' helmets in Liars, Guns, and Money had no transparency, so they couldn't see for shit, and I like to think that means that they were walking into walls during the filming. And they said, shout out to the prop work on Liars, Guns, and Money Part 3, and particularly the steel torture frame thing. We, as of this Moyabag recording, just recorded yesterday the first Season 3 podcast, and even there I was pointing out how amazing the prop and set work is on this show. It's on another level than most shows. Omen's killing it with the Marina and the Diamonds reference, saying this is the start of John feeling super, super, super suicidal, which I had to look up, but that song is pretty good, and I recommend people look it up. Forget what the actual song is called. And they also echoed our thoughts that Daimi Dichotomy's A-plot kind of ends in the second act, which gives it a strange pacing. Getting back to the thing that just this show is really weird with A-plots. Moving right along, we have some comments on the Reddit thread, reddit.com/r/Farscape. I love everybody that comments there and everybody that is on that subreddit. You're all great people. And I love the regulars. Like Leo Chris, who says, great episode as always, guys. Honestly, I have to admit that I found myself looking forward to Thursdays lately just because I know a new ScapeChatz is coming out. Farscape is one of my all-time favorite shows, and hearing first-time viewers' perspectives on it is really just fascinating. It takes me back to the first time I saw the show. I'm always wondering whether or not you'll enjoy the same parts I did. Admittedly, I can't wait to hear your thoughts about certain things from early Season 3. So there's also the 1 week closer to the good stuff aspect coming into play, I suppose. All of this awkward rambling brings me to my question. Since you've caught up to your previous recordings, do you foresee any kind of extended hiatus occurring in the near future? Thank you, Leo Chris, for the question. I real briefly put a short answer in the Reddit thread saying that we're going to do our best to have no hiatus at all, and I said I would elaborate here. We are like I mentioned a minute ago, we are 1 episode ahead of the published things right now. So this is the Season 2 recap, and this is being recorded on June 1st, just to pull back the curtain all the way. And on May 31st, we recorded the Season 3 Episodes 1 and 2 podcast. So we're going to stick to that. We're going to be around that pace for now, so we're basically only 1 week ahead of the show. It might actually end up catching up to us directly, but we're really, really trying to not have to take a week off. I can't make a 1000% promise that there won't end up being a week off. But we're going to do our best to not make you miss any weeks where you have to not have a ScapeChatz episode. That's everyone's goal here. Lazy Nothing says, great episode. Blue Blaze Spear has a comment about dichotomy and how it burns everything to the ground and salts the earth so nothing can grow there again. While Crichton was lying there on the operating table having memories clipped out, I was thinking about the role that memory plays up in the makeup of our consciousness. Even if the operation was a complete success, would he be the same guy? Presumably, a good chunk of the removed memories would be from his Earth years. This is the first time I thought, would a guy with his experience and his modified mental makeup be okay with getting back to Earth and retiring to a beach somewhere? It's a thought I had many times from this moment on in the series. For half a season or so, Harvey had been a fun way for them to let Scorpius pop in and chew the scenery without having the real Scorpius show up and be thwarted on a regular basis. And this comment goes on to talk about Harvey and Scorpius, and how, here's the last part, despite the calm, calculating exterior of Scorpius, there's something wild and scary bubbling under the surface, and to him, there are no such things as allies or enemies. Everybody is just a means to an end. He's clever and resourceful and patient, and he feels justified. To me, this is what a villain looks like. As we start Season 3, we've started to notice that, yeah, Scorpius is probably one of the best television villains in a long time, and I adore him. And I adore how much I hate him. Domain 101 is catching up to the show, and is excited that we're getting to the good stuff. And Red Kurth says, I was on the same page as you as regards to Joffrey the first time I watched the show, but the second time I found him and the interactions with Dargo and Chiana more human than most relationships on the show, which I agree with, but not all human relationships are good. He might not be doing the right things, but we can see his logic. That I agree with, and that makes him a more interesting character in retrospect. That I disagree with. Great episode as always. And Hyper Green Frog says, I felt the same way about him. I find the scenes with Chiana hard to watch, but as a story, it's Farscape doing what it does best. Showing us A, how complicated people and relationships are, and B, that dreaming about something and having it happen can be two very different things. Several characters learned that same lesson at some point, and although it may be heartbreaking, it's necessary for them to move on in life. I really like this little discussion going on in the comments. I think that's really good. Those are some great points being made. The Joffrey stuff doesn't end up going anywhere. We all know that. It kind of peters out very quickly, which you'll hear us talk about next week. I think that's all we have in terms of feedback, though. As always, you can post in these Reddit threads that we put up every week. We sometimes get, I think we mentioned this before, but we've gotten comments from people who don't like that we've been doing that so much, and they're like, oh, you know, every TV show's subreddit just becomes podcast spam. But, like, I'm sorry that this show doesn't get talked about on a daily basis other than, like, the Tumblr hashtags and this subreddit. And if you don't want people watching it for the first time to be popping up in your feed, then, like, what do you want the subreddit to be, I guess? Because that's, like, the most interesting stuff, in my opinion. But if other people want us to stop posting the threads, I guess I understand that. But it's how we have curated and created a audience. So I don't regret doing it at all. That is all that we have in the Moyabag this week. You can email us, scapechatz@gmail.com, twitter.com/scapechatz. You can, I think we plug the other podcasts at the end of the show and plug our own stuff. It's all in there. I hope you have a great week. Take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of the Season 2 recap before we move on to Season 3 next week. Bye-bye, everyone. And we're back. It's time to talk about things that suck.
Oh, what a great joke you made in the off times.
Yeah. It was really one of the funnier things that we've ever done.
Yeah, we didn't get it on recording though.
No, absolutely not.
No way.
I just put it right here. No, I'm just kidding. We're talking lowlights. We're talking the bad episodes of Season 2 of Farscape.
Lowlights. Tell my baby I'm back in town.
In a perfect world, we would not have these. And we might not even have these next season. But, I mean, it's sometimes fun to talk about why the show is not always great.
Don't know much about biology.
Yes,
don't know much
that's right.
Trigonometry. Let me walk you through that. You said perfect world, and then my head was like, what a wonderful world. Mm-hmm. And that is how that song goes.
I guess you're right. That's how that works. Oh, goodness. My low light is my first low light of my... Each of us has two. Season 2, Episode 10, My Three Crichtons. The fact that I only remember this episode as the one that I watched in a hotel room says so much about why this episode kind of blows. And the fact that our discussion of it was excellent.
Say that again, sorry.
our discussion of this episode was
Yeah,
excellent.
I was going to say, it provoked a surprisingly nuanced discussion.
And since I like to think of these recaps as a recap of the show and of ScapeChatz, I think, yeah, this was like one of the moments where we really found our voice. And we're like, oh, this is kind of how I want to talk about some of this show, is just like pulling apart its themes, because the episode doesn't do it. It's just like, oh, there's Futuro and Neandro, and there's Don Crichton, and Chiana loves Neandro, and Futuro's an asshole, but like maybe that's what Future Crichton is going to be like. Wooka Waka. Wooka Waka, which is the Star Wars version of Waka Waka. Yeah, I don't like thinking about my two Crichtons anymore, because I hate Futuro as a character, and the makeup is not great, and it's like a weird, there's a lot of like talking to each other on communicators. Like the crew is not all in the same room very often in this one. It's it's a sloppy one, and it could have been done a lot better. Oh well.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you, Magellan? What do you have for your first low light?
Oh, let me tell you. Ooh, I actually want to do this one second. So I'm going to do the one listed second first. This one is Home on the Remains. Home on the Remains. It's episode 7 of season 2.
Yes, it is.
It's the one where it's like they're going to mine or some shit, and then there's like a monster. Like, what the hell? This episode's bad. I don't know.
It shows how badly they can handle a off-planet episode. It's just like, I don't even care about any of this.
Right. It's just tissue paper. There's nothing there, really. They kind of try to build in a sense of Chiana having connections, which is a nice thought, but it doesn't really play. Yeah, and it's an example of them doing a planet episode where they put too much emphasis on the non-crew people, and it is ultimately to the detriment of the episode. It's just bad. There's not much more I have to say, except that I did not like it, and I don't think you need to watch it.
What's funny about this one, real briefly, is like when we talked about it and we did the background info, they mentioned how the Kidva, the like monster of this episode, was inspired by the monster from The Murders in the Rue Morgue, which we didn't get that at the time, but I've since then read that story for a detective fiction class, and that's kind of a funny thing, because The Murders in the Rue Morgue is an Edgar Allan Poe. It's his like first detective story in like a series that he did with a certain detective like main character, sort of like his proto Sherlock Holmes. And I'm just gonna tell people the plot of it. A woman and her daughter get murdered, and one of them gets shoved up a chimney. And the detective it's super fucked up. A detective examines it and finds out that what happened was a gorilla was being taken on a shipping container, and it broke out, and it broke into their house, and it got scared by one of them like trying to kill it, and then it killed 2 women. So the murderer was a gorilla. Is basically the one sentence version of that. So like I don't know. I think the parts where the Farscape fun facts are like they were inspired by this. It's like they clearly are well-read creators, but they don't pay lip service in an interesting way. Like the Kidva is just a dumb hairy beast. Right. And like granted they don't describe the gorilla or whatever in that story very well, but like just be a little bit more clever with it. Don't just be like it's a hairy beast and then we name like the thing. What I'm trying to say is like the thing in the show isn't that clever, but the thing it's inspired by is really good. So you're like, I don't even you're not trying that hard, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Speaking of not trying that hard, my last low light is a stinker. It's Beware of Dog, which Beware of Dog is episode 14 of season 2. I got nothing to say about this one. Magellan fell asleep while we watched this one. Like literally fell asleep through the whole thing. It is the Mac and me.
Like 10 minutes.
You're right. Not through the whole thing. But
have you ever seen Mac and Me, by the way?
No, I've only seen the clip that Paul Rudd brings on Conan.
Oh my god. Some friends of mine here at school did a sort of Mystery Science Theater style event where they like screened it and they did live commentary.
That sounds fun.
That movie's just insane.
Is it really bad? Oh no, it's just weird.
It's so bad. It's like it's capitalizing on the popularity of E.T., but it's shamelessly produced by McDonald's. So there's a ton of McDonald's product placement.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's like a scene where the alien is dressed up like a teddy bear to hide it, and they're at a McDonald's, and then they just start. There's just a dance scene.
What the fuck?
There's just a big 80s dance scene in the McDonald's, and then like the boy in the wheelchair like dies, and then the Mac and Me alien family brings him back to life, and they're all.
I mean, it's considered one of the worst films of all time.
They're just weirdly nude, and oh my god, it's crazy.
At least that's crazy in like a weird, interesting. We could talk over this kind of way, but like Beware of Dog is just paying lip service to that in the dumbest ways. It's like there's an alien on the ship. It's the only thing that can kill a virus, but it has to kill itself. So there's a sad scene where it dies, and it hops on Aaron's back, and it says, like, I love you in a translated language. I think that's all. Like, it's just a really blasé episode. I don't recommend Beware of Dog to anyone. I think they can do, like, weird alien joins the crew for an episode. Things way, way better than this one.
You want to hear what my low light is?
Magellan, I apologize. I have not been tossing that over to you, and I've just been doing the silence thing. So I'm going to cut back, and I'm going to, like, give you a better segue.
Oh, no, you don't need to toss it.
Okay.
I don't think everyone needs a toss.
Okay. Mwah.
Yay. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Magellan.
My low light is the lowest light
Oh, no.
that I can shine. It's a little episode called Picture, If You Will, Season 2, Episode 6, featuring fucking Maldus. Ugh.
Everyone's favorite.
Ugh.
This episode is the Farscape creators not knowing what they're doing. They're just like,
I hated it.
Wow.
I can't stand Maldus. I think he's the worst villain. And
This episode's full of fucking plot holes. Let's remember that real briefly.
Yeah, it's chock full of them. The effects are silly and ridiculous, and it's just not a good episode. I feel bad, like, ragging so hard on an episode of a show that people put in a lot of work to make,
right.
You know?
I mean, that's what critics do. Like,
yeah, I know. It's easy for me to sit in my IKEA chair and be like, oh, I know what's good and bad. But this is bad.
It's bad.
Yeah, that's all.
They were trying things.
They were trying things, sure. But they should have known from the first Maldus episode that shit was shit.
Is he's, like, dead, though, right? After he got, like, squished by the giant hand or something?
I hope so.
It is, no, yeah, this is definitely an episode that's just like, we want to do what happens, it's sort of like attempting to be a horror movie episode, where a dichotomy succeeds. Mm-hmm. Picture of You Will is the one where Chiana, like, gets the mirror, and, like, it cracks, and then she dies, and then Dargo dies, and everyone dies, and then they're not really dead, and they're in the painting, and then Maldus, and blah. That's it. It sucks. It really sucks. It's not memorable, it's not fun, the effects are bad, it's just a poopy episode. This is the one we can kind of agree on, like, there's barely any merit to this one.
Yeah, skip that one.
Yeah, just skip it right up.
Great.
But there are 4 more episodes of the season. Oh, Katie, you're back.
Made with magic. Hey,
Katie.
I wanted to talk about Farscape.
Hey, Katie, do you want to talk about a dark horse? You can take Magellan's first dark horse.
Okay. This episode that I wanted to talk about is called Dream a Little Dream. It's season 2, episode 8. And, sorry, Katie, hold on. I just gotta sit.
Oh, what the?
Okay. All right.
Okay. I have now sat on Katy Perry.
Yeah, I'm sitting on Katy Perry. I'm going to be doing that for the rest of the time. Dream a Little Dream, season 2, episode 8. That's the lawyer planet one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This one really epitomizes Dark Horse because it is, like, the weirdest production story ever for this show so far, because this one was, like, supposed to be the first episode when we come back from season 1's cliffhanger, and then it wasn't because of production reasons, and it had a different name at one point. But yeah, just, we didn't mention this earlier, but, like, Dark Horse basically means, like, these are episodes that we liked and we thought personally were interesting. This is the most subjective category, you could argue. And also we wanted a place to put the rest of these episodes, and they didn't fit anywhere else. So this is why
so what I'll say for Dream a Little Dream, it's kind of, like, not the best. It doesn't use Zahn particularly well. And overall, it's like the crew was somewhere crazy, and it's a totally ludicrous concept for a planet episode. It really doesn't explain anything because it's set up as, hey, you guys were gone. You were presumed dead or whatever at the end of season 1. And so we left and had this weird raucous adventure on this other planet. And you sure do need to know, don't you? But you don't. You just don't. It's a waste of time. But that said, it's really fun to watch. And the idea of a sci-fi legal procedural maybe wouldn't work, but to me that's a good idea for a show.
Totally.
So Dream a Little Dream is, like, not Farscape. It's not what Farscape's like, but its life cycle and where it came from, the fact that it was the first Farscape script that a producer ever read, that's just so fascinating that you can't not watch this episode. It's not the show, and it doesn't matter for the show, but it's such a fascinating artifact of the creative process that brought us to what Farscape looks like now, that I think it's worth watching and appreciating the parts that are good and kind of laughing at the parts that aren't that good.
Yeah. The parts that I remember the most are the silhouette of John and Aaron and Dargo that Claudia Black said is one of her favorite scenes from the show. I think that's the thumbnail for that episode. I also remember when we were doing Netflix Town before this episode, the laugh that I had when you said Litigara was the lawyer planet is like the most genuine hard laugh that I've ever had in years. So that was great. And then Ja Ruman is in this episode, who is also a rapper from the early 2000s. And it's also not, because that's Ja Rule. That was a fun little bit that I got to do. So I remember this episode more for like what we did as the show and not the episode itself. But it was a cool lawyer episode. And Sean and Rigel got to do fun things. The next episode that I have for my dark horse is Vetus Mortis, which is season 2, episode 2. And I forget what this episode is about. I now remember what this episode is about. Season 2, episode 2, Vetus Mortis, which is the episode where Dargo has sex.
Oh, yeah.
I don't actually think this episode is particularly good. I love the external shot of the planet that it takes place on. I love the Orican and the concept of this character who needs another Luxon to, like, you know, give her life force. And I love what it does for Dargo's character development. But, like, as a paced episode, it is no good. And it's just, it's really weird. It's really funny. And I love every time Anthony Simcoe gets to do, like, sex scene things. And, like, I don't know, everyone's weird in this episode. It's primarily like John and Dargo kind of yelling back and forth at each other, and I like it when they get scenes together. So that was enjoyable. But my favorite thing from our discussion this episode, and the last thing I really wanted to say about it, was that the part where the Orican sees John and Dargo, and I think is it also Aaron's on the planet with him? Oh no, it's Zahn. Wow, that's a really weird trio, actually. But she goes on and she's like, yes, what race is Zahn again?
A Delvian.
Yeah, she's like, a Delvian, a Luxon, and whatever you are. He's like, I'm a human. I do human things. So what's up? And then I always remember the Dungeons and Dragons theme song where the wizard is talking to the 3 main characters, and he's like, or the 4 of them, and he's like, you are now heroes, warrior, wizard, ranger, and acrobat. It's like still one of my favorite things. And I don't know, like, and that, and the fact that the thumbnail for this episode was when I did the, like, a Dargo O face, and Dargo is like my favorite, my personal fave right now. He's such a cutie, and I love him.
Yeah, he's a real cutie.
And it was great that they got to do a Dargo episode early in the season.
Coming at you like a Dargo episode.
Like a Dargo horse. Oh, we have one more dark horse, and I think it's yours, Magellan.
That's right. It is mine. Did you do your first one?
I did not.
Yeah.
I don't know why because we started with you, and I'm used to starting with me.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Interesting.
Cool.
All right, so we have 2 more.
Yeah. So my second one is actually the first episode of this season, season 2, episode 1, in case saying first wasn't clear. Mind the Baby. So Mind the Baby, as a refresher, is just things were bad at the end of season 1. Everybody was floating in space and probably dead. Season 2, it's been a while. And now they're here. Erin has been, like, bringing food to John and Dargo. She made a deal with Crace.
Yep.
To protect them. All this stuff. I don't know. It's very shouty and fighty as an episode, and it's kind of just it's basically just a direct compliment to the end of season 1, insofar as they're wiping away everything that season 1 cliff hung so that we can get back to business as usual. So I'm conflicted about it because on the one hand, it was really great to see the characters again and to see some slight costume, makeup changes going on, but it kind of put us in a spot where for the beginning of season 2, we were spinning our wheels and there wasn't a lot going on, which means that we got some very hit or miss one-off episodes, a string of them at the beginning. But I think it's worth watching for that sort of closure at the end of season 1 and to just see how things are set up for the season going forward. And there's also some fun camera stuff happening. The shots through the slats and...
very well filmed.
Yeah, all that is engaging.
Andrew Prowse killing it.
Right.
The thing I was going to say about Mind the Baby is, like, they really changed up the dynamics of the show after these early parts of season 2. Because, like, think about how much larger the cast is since this. Because, like, at the end of season 1, it's like, oh my god, we got Dargo and John and Aaron and Zahn and Rigel. And, like, was Chiana introduced in season 1?
I think so.
Yeah, but like she was still hadn't sort of come into her own character at that point, and Crace was still the villain for a while. So like Mind the Baby is this weird relic of like, wow, we really were just like, this is the Aaron, John, and Dargo show, and like everyone else is kind of like becoming side characters. And now we have Scorpius, and Crace is a completely he's done a complete face turn, and all of this stuff. Like, the show's gotten significantly more complicated since Mind the Baby, and that's like it's really cool to go back and watch it now and be like, huh, they were figuring things out at that point. So my actual last dark horse in the last episode of the season that we haven't talked about yet is season 2, episode 3, Taking the Stone. Me, as a big fan of character-specific backstory episodes, I really enjoyed Taking the Stone. I remember the podcast episode being a lot of me being like having to watch it closely and explain it to you because it's kind of weird. It's a lot of people consider it like the weird Chiana summer camp episode where she just like hangs out with her friends and jumps off of cliffs. It's got moments, and it's got a lot of cool visual stuff and a lot of bad visual stuff, like Chiana with the weird snake hair. Yeah. The whole thing is like she's back on one of her home, or like a home planet, and we learn about Neri because she thinks that Neri's dead in this episode, and she tries to figure out what reason she has to live. And so the whole like concept of taking the stone, where you jump off a cliff and either you die by hitting the bottom, or you like get some cool echo bouncy power and you get to bounce off the bottom. That's like really interesting. Bad stuff about it though, there's like a bad Rigel B plot where he's like finding treasure and then he like loses it or something or becomes evil. That stuff's dumb. But there's also like a pregnant lady with like a glass sphere in her stomach as a baby, and I think that's kind of cool. And the moment at the end, and this is like partly enjoyable because of how we discussed it on the show, but where we were like, yeah, Chiana is doing the jump to figure out, not like she doesn't want to die, she's not suicidal, she just wants to live. That was one of my favorite moments of our show and of Farscape, was when we kind of like came to that conclusion. So yeah, Taking the Stone, a very interesting episode. Do you have other things about it?
No, not particularly. It was confusing to me at the time. There was some character stuff that I appreciated, but it also had its fair share of cheese. The freeze frame sort of success moment at the end.
Oh yeah,
was a lot.
Yeah.
I think it was a perfectly fine early season episode. That's what I'll say.
Yes. So that is season 2 of Farscape in a bag. We did it, but we must look ahead.
We simply must.
People have requested this part of for us to add to the recap episodes, and we've taken your feedback, and we're going to start doing what's called plot predictions. That's what we call it. It's our unique little name.
Yeah, a little disclaimer. I've spoiled the stuff that y'all are like, oh man, they're going to go crazy for this for myself.
Y'all knows everything.
I don't know that I know everything, but I know like the 2 or 3 things that are like, oh.
Yeah.
That said, when they happen, I'm still gonna lose it.
Right, the context is important and great. So the actual plot predictions are like, it's mostly gonna be me doing the like serious stuff, but John's got stuff in here also that's like kind of silly. So I wrote a little thing here that I'll just read for people. This is my half jokey, half serious guesses about what happens in season 3 of Farscape. Aaron stays dead forever, and that's the show. But that's it. No, but seriously though, Jothi becomes a way bigger deal. Hopefully we get another Earth-based episode. I really think we will. And people keep telling me that season 3 is hella sad. So maybe everyone just hates each other and starts getting real, and it's the real world in space. Because like the first episode of season 3 is called like Season of Death.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Here we go.
I'm ready to be just broken down by it. I know that I do know a couple little things. Like I know that the animated episode is in here, so that's exciting. I don't know what it's called or what it's about, but I know there's a cartoon episode. More sad things. Someone probably gets addicted to space drugs. There's another Bugs on the Ship episode because the show hates me, and we're gonna get another cast member. I remember pictures on Netflix of there being a red lady whose name I'm going to assume is Chrysanthemum. So I'm probably right. And Crichton has the hots for her because he needs some sort of humanoids. Oh, this joke is bad. Crichton has the hots for her because he needs some humanoid space Virginia after Aaron died and Zahn got shot ordering space Chinese food. So him and her flirt. Him and Chrysanthemum flirt, and then, oh no, Aaron's back, but she has a metal arm. Something like that. And then this is actually accurate, or I think is accurate. Jothi has sexual tension with Chiana. Chiana does not pick up on it. Pilot or someone else tells her one day and things get awkward. Krace is probably going to die in a blaze of glory with like a face turn to end all face turns and like heroic sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like save Talon. And then this is just a bonus prediction that I have mentioned to people on Twitter and also Magellan. When I rewatched Daimi Dichotomy, noticed that John cut a piece of Aaron's hair, and I think he's going to use that to clone her. And then there's going to be this whole fun debate about whether or not the clone is the same person or not. Like that whole like, is a clone a thing question. Let's just be honest. I know that doesn't happen, but that like if someone didn't tell me no, that doesn't happen, I genuinely would have thought about it like that. That's like totally feasible. But someone was like, no, the hair is a memento. That's not where it's going. I don't know. I'm excited. What about you?
I'll just read mine. It's mostly jokes, but that's me. That's the kind of guy I am. I like that both of ours start with a prediction of what's going to happen to Aaron, and they're directly opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Aaron comes back to life, but was in heaven, and it turns out this isn't Aaron. It's someone else who stole her memories and wanted friends. It's a shapeshifter, but a sexy shapeshifter. Dargo kicks his own son in the dick, and the season ends in an Arrested Development Season 4 style cliffhanger. Zahn finally has something meaningful to do, and then immediately gets shot in the goddamn face. Pilot experiments with jokes. Chiana leaves the ship for a while after falling out with Dargo and returns with a robot arm, so that's a common theme.
Yep.
2 huge guns and a tattoo.
Ooh.
Rigel gets a costume change. No pants. Parentheses, does Rigel wear pants now? Jothi grows a rat tail, which is somehow distinguishable from his mess of hair and tentacles, and he cannot pull it off. Krace and Talon start a folk ensemble. John Crichton does a Scottish accent for fun, and he will not stop.
I fucking love it. Does a Scottish accent and will not stop. That's amazing.
On a serious note, I think this Chiana Jothi stuff is going to get real annoying and sad for Dargo. Dargo's probably going to get mad and sulk and maybe leave. Who knows? I do think Zahn's going to die.
I do too.
She's just got to die. Or just have something happen. Yeah, Krace and Talon are probably going to come back in a big way. I can only imagine they're going to keep playing a bigger role in the show. Probably haven't seen the last of that clone in John's brain, the neural clone, because that was too cool of a device for them to get rid of. But I'll be curious to see how that gets explained.
I'm curious how, because that stuff is going to get, or like him not being able to talk is definitely going to get figured out in like an episode, maybe 2.
Right.
So like how they figure that out is also interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we're going to get a couple episodes that are dumb.
For sure, but like maybe interesting dumb, since this is the good season.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to overhype it. I'm trying not to overhype it because, this show there's no such thing as a perfect show, but yeah, everyone tells me, like we mentioned the Daniel Riendeau skip list a long time ago, but like there are no skippable episodes on that list from season 3 or 4. Actually 4 maybe has some, but 3 definitely has none. So, we're getting into it, folks. And that was our season 2 recap of Farscape.
Yeah.
John, this car is not a car. It's a spaceship. And the spaceship has left planet ScapeChatz, and it's soaring far across to a red planet, a distant red planet.
Oh my god.
And it's streaming in slowly but surely, in crisp widescreen, presumably. And we have arrived. The warp has finished. Mm-hmm. And we are now on planet Netflix. John, could you take a peek at the captain's log and see what data we have on planet Netflix?
Zeep.
At least in the near future. And tell us what we're going to be doing next week on ScapeChatz. What we're going to be watching.
I sure can, Captain.
Thank you, Ensign.
Season 3, Episode 1, Season of Death. Scorpius's neural chip has been removed, but Crichton doesn't care. Aaron is dead. His power of speech is gone, and Scorpius's personality remains.
What the fuck?
Heavy. Yeah, Season 3, Episode 2. Sons, as in S-U-N. Sons and lovers. The crew heads to a commerce station to spend their heist money, but the station is damaged by a violent storm, ensnaring Moya in the docking cables. That one sounds way dumber.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go.
Those will be our discussion next time on ScapeChatz. And since we're between seasons, we can't have a cute little like per season fun way of going out. So I'm just going to say, thank you for listening to ScapeChatz. We will see you next week.